We are back with another Classic 900 video, and today we're hopefully going to fix an issue on the car. I feel like I always start off these videos by stating that, but we have some new NOS spark plugs that we need to install. There are some other items that we'll be taking care of in this video after that, so you want to stick around. But when I did the engine rebuild on this car, basically everything under the hood was gone over and replaced with the exception of the spark plugs. The reason why I didn't touch the spark plugs is I tried to put new spark plugs in it and the car ran like crap, so I ended up just sticking the old spark plugs in. I did new rotor, distributor cap, plug wires, all that fun stuff, and that fixed the idle misfire I had at the time. You can check out that video in the top corner if you're interested. But recently, Saab Parts made a post that they had a few sets of NOS Saab 900 spark plugs. These are BCP 7ESs, which from looking at our Bentley manual are one of the recommended spark plugs for these cars. Now, I initially tried BCP R7ES, which are resistor plugs. The resistor plugs just did not work. I've seen people online say resistor plugs are fine, other people say they aren't fine. In my experience, they didn't work. Thankfully, because these are NOS, these are old school, they are non-resistors. So I'm hoping that these will solve the misfire issue I'm having, which is basically under full throttle in 3rd through 5th gear, or sometimes in 2nd gear. It just seems to misfire and have absolutely zero power. So without further ado, let's get into it. We need to pop off the coil cover, pull out the plug wires, and then remove our old spark plugs. All 4 of the spark plugs look about the same, which is a good sign. These are currently BCP 7ESs from NGK, which are the same spark plugs that we will be replacing them with. Again, they don't look especially bad, but obviously they're a bit old. They're at least 3.5 years old. That's how long I've owned the car, and who knows when they were last replaced before that. So I'm hoping that this is just a case of some old spark plugs, but let's see. So y'all might ask, what's the recommended spark plug gap? Based on the Bentley manual, it says 0.6 to 0.7 millimeters. And so if I use my gap tool here, I can tell you that this one is at about 0.8. This one's closer to 0.7. This one's much higher. This one's at about 0.9. And this one's about at 0.85 or so. So all of these, for the most part, are gapped at more than what they should be. So that could be part of our issue, is that right there. But we'll make sure that these new ones are gapped properly. Oh yeah. Much, much cleaner. Looks like this one is pre-gapped at about 0.75 or so. Not too far off from where we need to be. Yeah, all 4 of them are at about 0.75. I'm going to try to close these gaps a little bit, and then we'll install a little bit of anti-seize on the threads, and we'll throw them in the car. Go right at 0.7. I think we're good to go. Put a little bit of that on the threads. With these tightened down by hand, I'm going to torque them all to about 20 foot-pounds. Plug wires. They're all different lengths. Obviously it matters which cylinder they go into, but they are all different lengths, so it's kind of impossible to mess that up. Make sure they click down onto the spark plug properly. No sense in putting that cover back on. Let's fire it up and see how it runs. Well, it's idling fine. When I'd previously put resistor plugs in, it wouldn't even idle right. So this is a good start at least. I'm just gonna let it idle for a few minutes and kind of monitor everything. So at the risk of getting too ahead of myself, I've put about 20-30 miles on the car, and I think we have fixed our misfire issue. One of the scenarios where I'd have a misfire is if I was in second gear going pretty slow at like low RPM, and the car would just have no power. You know, that was maybe, you know, 2/3 of throttle, but it didn't hesitate at all. It just kind of picked up, and, you know, there's turbo lag obviously, which is normal, but it didn't hiccup at all at those low RPMs in second gear, so that's a great sign. Just a beautiful, beautiful evening here in Phoenix. Let's get up to the freeway there, and we can do a test on the on-ramp to see if we fix that 3rd to 5th gear misfire at the mid-range RPM level. Hop on the freeway here, 3rd gear, and punch it. Yep, that RPM range, that 3,000 to 5,000, it had nothing before, and now it does. That is awesome. And admittedly, that's not the first time I've done that. Like I said, I have driven the car about 20-30 miles, but I'm gonna head home now. We have a couple of other small fixes we need to do on this car before the end of the video, so let's get into those now. This clutch pedal cover right here has been a bit of a pain for me, and it's fallen off multiple times. So here is our clutch pedal. This has like a thin rubber slit that kind of goes around all sides that allows it to kind of hook around there. However, mine, as you can see, is a little bit torn and is missing a little bit on the top. So if I put it on like this, it's just going to slide down and off. So I had previously tried putting it on this way. It only worked temporarily, so what I'm thinking is going to be our best solution is to just use some super glue and some clamps to hopefully form a nice bond between these two so this doesn't happen again. I'm just gonna douse a bunch of super glue on here. Did not work as well as I had hoped, if I'm being completely honest, but I'm very glad I put that paper towel there. Very smart of me to touch the part where there's super glue. Oh, now all my fingers are stuck together. All right, I'm gonna let that hold for a few minutes. And man, the super glue is strong. I had to go clean up. This next repair is another small one that has been bothering me for a good bit of time, and that is our glove box door and the associated leather cover on it. So the first thing I need to do in order to show you guys this and also to fix it is we need to detach the glove box door from the dashboard. That's held in by 4 Phillips head screws, 2 on each side. And just rotate this off. There we go, very easy. Here's our glove box door. I bet you if you own a 900 and you're watching this, you've probably dealt with the same issue. But these tend to kind of just peel up over time. This one's actually in pretty decent shape. It's really only this left side that has started to peel up in the last year or so. So I think the best way to fix this, unfortunately, I can't really just push the leather back down. I mean, I could, but you can see it's starting to kind of rip right there. So if I just put a lot of pressure on this, use these C-clamps, I'm worried it's going to crack the perimeter of the leather here, which we don't want to do. So what I'm thinking and hoping I can do is use a little bit of heat with this blow dryer and then hopefully heat it up enough to soften the leather a bit, shoot a bunch of hot glue down in here, and then put a piece of wood over it to apply pressure evenly, and then we'll install these couple of C-clamps and other clamps to just hopefully hold this in place overnight and get a nice good seal back on this corner. So let's give it a shot. It seems to be pretty malleable now. We do still have those little cracks. They're not going to go away, it looks like. That's okay, it's not going to be perfect. So now let's stuff our hot glue in here. And this is probably not the best material or glue to use for this, but it's what I had. Again, we're using this wood to help evenly distribute the load and to also avoid scratching or making imprints on the leather. So the main areas I want to focus on are the corners. So that's why I have all the pressure on the corners with the C-clamps, and this other clamp we just have right in the middle. So I guess now I'll just let this sit like this overnight and let's hope for a good result.
Tomorrow.
I'd say one thing you can kind of notice, I think the wood left a little bit of an imprint, or something left a little bit of an imprint there from that angle when the light's on it. You can kind of see. Not really that noticeable. I mean, it looks 10 times better than it did. Looks like no glue kind of squirted through on the edges, so that's fantastic. There's just a little bit right here that I can get off with my nail, but yeah. That looks pretty good. Let's reinstall it. Just need to line those up. I'm hoping that this repair lasts. We'll see. I have a feeling it's the heat of summer that really destroyed this last year. Well, I'm only going to leave those last clips in the video as sort of a PSA for any of you Classic 900 owners, but I noticed that about after a day that this was no longer stuck to itself. It had started to peel up just a little bit, and so I thought maybe I just needed to pull it back off and re-glue it again. Maybe I didn't use enough glue. Maybe I can adjust where the wood was at, where the pressure points were. So I tried that. I let it sit for another 2 days. And sure enough, it started to peel back again immediately. So now we are probably about a week after this, and you can see that we are arguably in a worse spot than where we started. Honestly, it's not as bad as when we started, but now you can see all the glue marks here, which is frustrating. And so I've actually had a lot of people tell me that there's really no way to get this leather to stick back on here permanently. Even things like rubber cement don't work. And so I think really the only way to truly fix something like this is to peel off the leather entirely and to reskin it with something else. So maybe that'll be a job in a future video, because I do have some plans for some custom door cards at some point in the future. So maybe I can also do that accent on here, but we'll see. Either way though, I would consider this a very, very successful video. We definitely fixed that misfire, and I say that knocking on wood or metal just out of fear of jinxing myself. But we do have a few miles on the car with the new plugs. I've run it through the scenarios where it would misfire multiple times, and it seems to be good. That's everything I have for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one.